Hey, Jeff Reber over at ERA Heaven Realty, here with a very good friend, and now also a client. This is Jeremy Martin. I'm going to give Jeremy's background info, and then I'm going to let Jeremy correct
Let's
um,
hear it.
my errors on his background info. So, as far as I know, Jeremy has been in commercial real estate, appraising, insurance adjusting, general contracting, mortgage brokerage, flipping houses. What am I missing? I feel like I did a lot
You're
of
actually
those.
giving me a little too much credit. The appraising thing never happened, but we did. I guess we did some broker opinions of value for some clients. So maybe
Hold on,
that.
you were never actually an appraiser? I thought you were a licensed appraiser for like 14 months or something.
No, I'm glad you think highly of me, but no, that
Okay,
was
all right. Well,
all right. But
software
yeah,
development, I could add that to the list. Yeah.
no, I don't think that would apply at all. But
All right. Well, the reason that Jeremy and I are here talking at the moment is because Jeremy has almost perfected the art of turning a primary residence into a rental property. And I was looking for someone to have this conversation with. Jeremy's actually also a client of our property management company. We manage a handful of his rentals. And what I told him was the only time I tried to turn a primary residence into a rental, and this was pushing 20 years ago now, it was a disaster. It did not work out well for me. So he's done a much better job of that. And certainly I have rental properties, and those have all worked out great. But when it came to converting a primary residence into a rental, I fell very short, and Jeremy has done that well. So yeah, give a quick kind of background on what you have, how you got into it, and that sort of thing,
sure,
Jeremy.
we've got essentially we own 5 homes, and I say five because eventually this one will probably become a rental because that's just what we've done. But 4 of them are currently rented out, which Jeff helps us manage. I think you're managing 3 of them. The fourth one will, whenever the tenant turns over, we'll be letting you guys take that one over as well because they do a great job. But really, we got into it when we bought our first house. We haven't made a ton of money. So when you're wanting to get into real estate, that's usually the limiting factor. Like, what do I have
Gotta have some
available?
cash, right?
Yes, how do I get this cash? And I'm not I'm not the biggest networker. I'm not the guy that's going to go out and like raise funds with people. That's just it's more complicated than I want to deal with. So the simplicity, like it is messy, but there is a lot of simplicity in doing one deal at a time. You know the property really well. So
Well,
that's
give
really
us the, for example, on the first one. So how did that one come about, and like what type of financing?
for sure, yeah. So what I tell people, and I've actually started kind of doing a little bit of real estate education stuff just because people were asking,
Right.
and me and my wife are home all the time now. So when people ask me, basically, I'm a big proponent. I've only used conventional financing. It's what I did when I was a mortgage originator. So I know the programs. It's available to everyone. There's no like gotchas in it. You know what you're getting. And when we did it this way, it allows you to leverage a lot more. Our first home, we put more down because at that point in time, I was planning to go the route of, all right, I want to get this paid off as soon as I can. Since then, I've pretty much done the minimal or the least amount down that they'd let me. So with personal residences, you can do it as low as like 3.5% down. I typically did about 5%. But our first deal, it was right after, I guess it was 2011. So we weren't at the bottom of the recession. It started coming back a little bit, but there were still screaming deals. This one was, I think we paid $77,000 for this house. And it was in a shape that you'd think a $77,000 house would be. We had to do a complete gut. There was a hot tub that was left on the back porch that was just, it was awful.
Yeah,
Um,
even 11 years ago, $77,000 didn't quite buy you the Taj Mahal in
no,
Jacksonville. Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of work. I mean, I remember I had to shop the insurance to multiple companies because their roof was, older, but we didn't have the money to fix it, and it was a bank foreclosure. I didn't think they were going to do it, so we had to shop the insurance multiple places because I couldn't get insurance on the roof. I finally found somebody to that would insure it. Same. The HVAC unit was probably like it was on its last legs. I don't. It lasted another couple of years, but I can't believe it even did that. It was rough all around. But I knew it was kind of like if we get into this, we were getting it for such a good deal. I mean, it was going to be less than what we were renting for at the time, and so I was like, well, if we can get into it, it's a really good way to get started into owning real estate.
It looks like a brilliant investment 11 years later, but at the time, I'm sure you were nervous about it, anxious about it, hoping that it would work out. Who knew if the economy would recover, and on and on and on. And I say this constantly, given enough time, it doesn't matter if you buy a great deal. Like, if you do the work, find the deal, get everything stabilized, put a tenant in place, properly take care of both your tenants and your property, down the road, you're going to be just fine, regardless of whether or not you got this phenomenal deal up front. But to dive into that one a little bit more, so you paid 77 for it. Any idea what it's worth today and what you've got into it in terms of cost or purchase plus renovation?
I'm kind of crazy. I keep track of a lot of this stuff, and it's really easy these days with all the tools we have.
The fact that you have this right in front of you is impressive, actually. I mean, I think I'm OCD about keeping up with my rental properties, but you had it like click of a button, you were there, so that's great.
Well, I knew we were talking today too, so it makes it a little easier. Giving me too much credit. So I just basically I just use Zillow values because for my purposes, it's plenty good for approximation of value.
We don't need to be super accurate here.
Right, and ballpark. The accounting software that I use, again, makes it super easy. It's Stessa. It's a free account that you
spell
can
that,
use.
or what is it again?
It's assets backwards. But it's Stessa.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, Stessa, and it's kind of like a Mint. It aggregates all your financial data, so like you can attach your accounts to it. It'll go and pull transactions, and then I go in and code them to the property and spits out all the nice reports that you need, all the accounting stuff. But it also has these really nice things. You can just click update value. And so I do this once a month when I'm doing my bills, and it updates all the values for the properties. So, and you can either do manual valuations, or I just use Zillow again because it's a good enough proxy for what I'm doing. I mean, that's an entry level home. So like right now it's up at 285 roughly, which, because it is hard to get anything under that these days because the market's been so crazy.
And have you kept that same loan that you used originally to purchase it in place, or have you refinanced over the years?
Yeah, so it is the exact same loan. I have done equity lines on the back of those loans at different times just because one of the challenges, as you probably know, about owning real estate, even if the market's doing crazy, and you've got lots of equity, you can't buy groceries with equity. So you've got to figure out some way sometimes to get some of the equity out of it, especially if it starts getting too much. But the first mortgage, yeah, I've been letting it ride because, I mean, interest rates are so great, or they have been. So I locked in a really low rate, and it was a primary residence. So I don't even remember what I'm at. It's probably in the threes there, and it's a 30-year fixed, and that's kind of my MO, all of them. I just get a locked in rate, and when you're investing, it's great because you're just kind of capping your downside with the interest rates. You can always go back and refinance, but at least your biggest monthly expense, your mortgage, is locked in. You don't have to worry about that changing.
Well, and to sidebar for a second, so I don't know if you can see it on the board behind me, but I ran a scenario this morning just as a hypothetical, buying a $300,000 house that should rent for about $2,300 a month at a 5.5%, which is about what you get if it was a primary residence, mortgage interest rate, assuming taxes, insurance, vacancy, a management fee, all of these things, some repairs, you still end up with, when you include depreciation, about $10,000 in positive benefit to you, the landlord, each year. And then when you run that scenario out over 15 years, your $300,000 home is, I think it was $470,000, assuming a 3% appreciation rate, which is super conservative. And I was doing it as if we were going a conventional route for the loan, but so putting 20% down, your $240,000 loan balance 15 years later, I think, is 160 some odd thousand, 167 maybe. So you in 15 years time have realized $10,000 annually in benefit, and then about $300,000 in equity created if you wanted to sell it. And so the snowball effect of real estate, I just love, and I love, and you're doing it the right way, that you have a smidgen of control in how things go versus if I just put it in the stock market, it's like just throwing it into this little black box and hoping that things work out well. And there are all sorts of issues that I don't control.
And one thing I love about the option of real estate versus, now I don't have retirement. I don't have, this has been my retirement. I don't have stuff in the stock market. I have a little crypto just because I enjoy it. It's fun, but I don't invest money except for in real estate because I understand it. It's simple. But the other thing I just love about it is, my expenses are dictated by the economy. And so, but also my revenue from these properties is also going to be rising with that inflated economy if that happens. So I don't really even care what's happening with the market. It's such a peace of mind thing to just have it tied to our economy that it's just it's a great way for me to invest my money as far as I'm concerned.
It's a good hedge against inflation. And before I forget to ask, if somebody wants to go find where you are doing educational stuff on real estate, what's the URL for that?
We're getting stuff set up. I was recording my first YouTube videos this week. We shut down one business that we were doing 2 weeks ago, actually, our membership. So now I'm going to be focused a little bit more. Just probably jeremyandmegan.com. We'll end up updating
Jeremy
it.
and Megan, MEGAN.com, right?
.com. Yep. And right now it probably has stuff about, we had a membership site about doing online business, but we shut that down.
Gotcha. So out of curiosity, and I won't take up too much more of your time, but where is sort of the bullseye for how many properties? Like, when do you stop? Or what would be next? So you're at 5 properties now, 4 of which are rentals. How long do you keep going, or do you just keep rolling as things come available? What's that look like?
Have you heard of the Coast Fire idea?
No.
FIRE. Have you heard about FIRE? Like financial independence, retire early.
Yeah.
So we kind of
There's a guy with a podcast that's that, right?
Probably, yeah. Like, there's quite a few people. If you start Googling it online, everybody's got a blog these days about what they're doing. But financial independence, retire early. Now, Coast Fire is this other idea, and it's based on that, but it's just like a sub niche, and essentially saying, hey, once you have a nest egg and extrapolating out, a 3% growth rate, or maybe 8% on the market, by the time you reach the age of retirement, you have enough in the nest egg. So you don't have to worry about saving anymore necessarily because you've got enough of a nest egg. You're just worried about today. So that's kind of how I think about our life, honestly. Like, I didn't know that was a term until I was looking into it or trying to figure out where I was going to be putting my energy into marketing. But there's a Bureau of Labor Statistics study from 2020. They do, all this study on housing and where people spend their money, and 29% of the average American household was budgeted towards housing. So with my like kind of simple math is like, all right, let's say 25% to be conservative. With the 4 houses we have, once they're paid off, that's the equivalent of 100% of the average American household's income. So that I'm kind of happy where we're at.
You're saying, hold on, let me ask a question there. So you're saying once the 4 houses are paid off, the net cash flow coming in from those 4 houses will give you 100% of the average American's income or median income?
Yeah, I'm simplifying a little bit because there are other expenses that you got to go through, but at the same time, we're also planning to have our house paid off. But yes, that's the gist of what I'm saying. And when you start thinking about it like that, it's like, man, I don't need to spend more of my time than necessary than just paying bills right now, because I'm not worried about our financial future. So I'll continue to do things just because I enjoy it. It's fun, and we need things to do. Idle hands are not, driving myself crazy.
You can only watch so much Netflix in a day. That is
Yeah,
true, or a week, or a month before it is psychologically unhealthy. So
yeah,
yeah.
but it does open up. Like when you start thinking of things that way, it allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Like I just mentioned, we shut down that business, and it was a great business that we had. 1,000 members a monthly, and we're just teaching online business, but our heart wasn't in it anymore. So we were like, you know what? Even though we're walking away from money, it's yeah, like we don't need to do this. Like we don't have to struggle for the money right now. So what do we want to put our time into? So there's no real bullseye. It's just living life and what piques our interest at the time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I just read a book. What was I think the title of the book was actually 80/20 on the Pareto principle. Guy's name, author was Robert Koch, Koch, I believe it was. But he basically made the observation that you will inevitably end up making more money when you pursue something that is interesting and engaging for you personally
Mm-hmm.
versus just trying to gut it out and do the thing that you think you're supposed to be doing. Because you have joy in your work, it will yield better results. So I think you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
you know Pursuing things that interest you versus doing something that you think you have
Right,
to
and
do
it's
for
it's
whatever
just
reason.
more fun. I mean, to give you the crazy numbers, I was running them. Our household income over the last decade, or actually there's 11 years here, it's been a little less than $80,000, and that's averaged over all 11 years. And there was actually a year when I started my commercial real estate that it was red. We were in the negative that year, but so that
Sir, you are losing money this year. That is the wrong direction.
seriously, it was a tough year, and there's stories there too about the rentals, but we made it through. So, but that's been our income. But I mean, we've saved essentially more than our entire income during that time because we've also had all the income coming in, and now the equity in the properties. It's just I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm trying to live out that 80/20 principle. Trying to
I
focus.
think if you are watching or listening and need a walk away, it's about not making excuses to not invest because you don't have enough income. Like
Yeah, if you can figure
you
out a
can
way.
invest. You just and back to the book that I just read. I don't know how he even got into this, but the simple tip from him, the author of the 80/20 book, was just take away your money first that you're going to save and invest with, like remove it from being available to you, whether that's auto drafting it out of your bank every month, and then going to invest it later. Just make it a habit, like force your hand so that you can't spend the money that you need to be investing first, because regardless of how much or how little you're making, and the truth of the matter is you have people that have extraordinary incomes that invest very little and then have nothing to show for it a
Yeah.
decade later. So it's more about
And
the mindset and the habit.
yeah, we save about $1,300 a month on autopilot because that's just what's getting paid down on our mortgages. So it's like, if that's not enough, then man, I've got my priorities out of whack because I don't need that much to live. Once I get older, there was a. It just brings to mind there was this study when I was doing some research, and it was talked about people when their mind is like fixated on scarcity, like they've got a car bill coming due or something, that it took them from like average intelligence to like borderline deficient. It was just crazy how much stress and like worrying about that kind of thing can affect just how we make decisions. And it wasn't just intelligence; it was also like
Motor
our
skills, whatever else.
yeah. Well, no, it was like our I'm searching for the word. Just basically like stress eating, like our ability to delay things. I can't think of the word right now,
Delayed
but
gratification.
yeah, just we don't make as good a decision, I guess, is the gist of the whole study
I
if I had
gotcha.
it pulled up. Um,
That's crazy though, how that can affect, and you think about that in one small instance, and it being maybe a poor outcome that you didn't make a good decision here because you were stressed about whatever thing, but then you multiply that by 365 days a year, 10 years time frame, and you can see big differences between making decisions when you're stressed and not being stressed when you're making
Yeah.
decisions. So,
And when you've
yeah.
got real estate, you just don't have to worry about the saving part because it's happening. It's not
It's on
hard.
autopilot.
Yep.
Although there are certainly stressful parts of owning rental property.
Oh, yeah, you
They're
gotta know
usually few
what's
and
coming
far
up.
between.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I don't want to keep you all day here, but anything else to add or check in on before we wrap
No, I
up?
mean, the hardest part, you got to get your spouse on board if you're doing something like this, Megan. We spent our first anniversary living with my parents and my grandmother because our house was like we were working on it and it wasn't ready. So you got to make sure the spouse is happy with the situation.
Yeah,
But that's
I forgot about
that's
that.
everything in
Yeah.
life.
You have great family though, so that's a good a good thing that you were able to live
Yeah,
with them for
no,
a
it was
year.
fun. It was a good time. I don't think it's what
All right.
my wife would have chosen for our
Yeah,
first
I mean,
anniversary,
regardless
but
of how great your family is, do you want to be living with your in-laws as an adult? Probably not.
no.
Not ideal. Well, cool. Well, all right. If anybody wants to check in on Jeremy, jeremyandmegan.com, we said, right?
Yep.
Is that how to go see what you're doing these days? Well,
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate it. Mino is what I lovingly refer to Jeremy as. That's his nickname. I won't get into how we landed on Mino for a nickname, but anyways, Mino, great to see you, and we will have to catch up soon. And if anybody has any questions for me, feel free to give me a shout, 904-405-1995. Email jeff@era.com, and I'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Have a good one.